Hello and welcome to my weekly real estate market update. Hope you're having a fantastic week. As always, I'm delivering fresh insights into the property market across Australia and locally here on the Sunshine Coast as well. Hope the information is relevant to you, particularly if you're looking to buy or sell in the near future. Now you can check out all my updates by heading on over to martinuzzi.com.au. Now we've seen the RBA hold that cash rate, and I believe this is actually putting a lot more buyer confidence back into the marketplace. We can see that through the auction clearance rates. Now, last week it was reported that auction clearance rates were hovering around the 76% mark. Now, that's the highest it's been since June last year. And in those markets that are fairly auction dominating, like the Melbourne and Sydney markets, that's a good sign that buyer sentiment and buyer activity there is quite strong. And that's why those auction clearance numbers are quite up. So that's higher than this time last year, where it was hovering around 65%. So that's a good sign that buyer confidence has returned, and it might be off the back of that cash rate hold. A lot of the experts are now predicting there won't be another rate rise, and if anything, we'll see in the next few months, maybe 3 to 6 months, we might see an ease in that cash rate. So we might see interest rates start dropping back, as long as the big four banks pass that on, of course. So that's what's happening across the marketplaces at the moment. Now, property price growth, well, a couple of things really driving price growth at the moment, and that is one, affordability. And relative affordability in our capital city markets, Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide, they're leading the way with property price growth. Sydney and Melbourne, not so much. And then regional areas around those capital cities are really still booming as well. Anything from Hervey Bay up to Cairns, we're seeing strong growth there as well still. So that's a key factor, is affordability. The other thing to consider is supply and demand. Supply is still down, and long-term trends down 20%. But in some markets like Melbourne, where prices are not really growing rapidly, they're holding fairly firm. There's a lot of demand because they've got a lot more immigration numbers coming into Melbourne, but there is still a lot of supply to keep up with that demand. New homes, new developments, and established homes coming to the market heavier than some other capital cities as well. So supply and demand and affordability, key factors to the property price growth at the moment. Now, property pricing, which I think is a challenge at the moment, and the reason for this, well, actually there's several reasons for this. The first one is that numbers are down, transactions are down, so they're down by about 30% on the coast. So that means there's less properties to compare your sale to, and because those transactions are less current, it's hard to find out what you can compare your price to. So that makes it challenging for an owner to pinpoint a price on their property. The second challenge is that we can see sometimes two properties sale or sold properties, and although they seem externally to represent similar value, they've sold for very different numbers. That makes it challenging for a buyer to determine where actual value is, but also for a seller as well. And finally, of course, the property is subjective, and it's perceived by the buyer, and buyers hold different perception of values of property. So that often changes what one property will sell for and what one property may not sell for. And buyers will often come in miles apart in their pricing or value expectations as well. So that makes it very challenging, which is why we're seeing a lot of properties being listed with no advertised price. And that makes it challenging, obviously, for buyers as well. But if you're a buyer out there, speak to the agent, because often they'll still give you a price guide as to where they think it will sit. But harder for an owner to pinpoint that price, because you just don't know what one buyer and the next will offer you on your property. So that's my update this week. I think property price growth this year, all the experts are suggesting it'll be around 5% this year, 5% next year. So we're not going to see huge numbers. Not like what we saw in 2021, where property prices in Australia went up something like 20 to 25%. And again, coming off the back of that boom, I think it makes it challenging for sellers to go, okay, well, is that the expectation now for property prices to rise that far? Well, no, that was one-off, 1 year, and actually a third of the price growth over the last decade was in that 1 year. So that's not a regular thing. Property prices don't grow that fast, usually around 5 to 7% a year on average. So that's how you can price a property at the moment. I can say that safely property prices will stabilise, and we'll get some more common ground as to what is fair value in a marketplace. At the moment, it's in a little bit of flux, so it makes it challenging. Hope that update serves you well today. Have a great day. Anything we can help you with, please give me a call.